Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Pandu Pratama. I'm from class IF45 INT, and today I am here to present my assignment on the topic of what if we switch Earth's and oceans ratio. And this is on the next one. Next slide. The, Before we jump into the analysis, we will go with the definition first. So in the definition, to minimize the disagreement, the confusion as to what is the definition of switching Earth's and oceans ratio, what was switch? Here we will straight that out. By that, the definition is as written: we switch the sign of all elevations, so a trench with a maximum depth of 10,000 meters becomes a mountain range with the same elevation level above sea, thus making the water volume lesser and the oceans will become much more shallow because the water volume is not maintained. So we are only going for the elevation, and the rest is we are going for the elevation and the sea level. That's the thing. All right. The rest is the rest will adapt according to that. So in the next slide, we are going for the temperature. In this section, my I'm not really sure. The temperature the temperature will be much drier and both colder and hotter depending in which places we are talking about, because this new Earth is composed largely of high plateaus with a more reflective surface, fewer ocean currents, and a thinner atmosphere over land. The Earth's evaporation quantity will be largely reduced, rendering it hotter on low altitude places. The golden zones in between would be probably the only places warm enough for farming. So yeah, with a more reflective surface, fewer ocean currents, and a thinner atmosphere over land. Because if it's consisted largely of high plateaus. In our current world, the oceans, right? The oceans, there are so many deep oceans. So if we are talking with the same sea level and reverse it, well, there will be a lot of high plateaus compared to now. So yeah, because of that, it will be much drier and colder because there are a lot of high places. Oxygen doesn't go there, and yeah, and with Earth's evaporation quantity, it will be largely reduced, rendering it hotter on low altitude. And the one where you can farm will be probably somewhere in the middle of not too low and not too low while also not too high. So that's why on the next one, the one single continent will be dominated by the high plateaus of the Atlantic and Pacific regions, whereas Earth's land averages 840 meters above sea level. New Earth averages a breathtaking 3,700 meters altitude. The highest point is Mountain Challenger in the Marianas Mountain Range, which was before it was a ditch. No, not ditch. It was a trench, and now because it is inverse, now it become a mountain at the very edge of the troposphere to the east, many parts of Great Pacific Desert have never recorded a drop of rain. Yeah, Pacific the the Pacific Ocean will become Pacific Desert. And now the oceans. New Earth is only 29% covered in water, mostly in four very shallow oceans. The deepest point is, of course, found in Himalayan range north of the Bay of India. The Antarctic Ocean is covered in perpetual ice, as are large portions of the American and Australian oceans. The ocean will be really minimal compared to now, and it will probably very shallow compared to the before depth to the before depth of the ocean. And yeah, the deepest one is naturally will be the Himalayan range. And the next slide we have the impact. The impact on this will become well it will be listed here on one of it. Life on Earth will be very difficult considering the amount of drinkable water available. Its value will become equivalent to that of diamonds. Water will be very scarce and very expensive. The drinkable ones that normal living beings such as humans and animals can drink, not salt water. So life will be very tough on Earth. It will be highly competitive. It even well considering among humans and not even including the animals. So yeah, there will be a lot of that. Next one, there will be less oxygen because of lesser oceans and lots of high altitude places. Lesser lesser oceans less will make things less well, there will be less H2O. That's about it. Even with the hotter even with the hotter climate, the the evaporation will still mostly consisted of salt, which is well bad. The oxygen will not be as much as now. And the high altitude places doesn't help on that case. It will most probably devoid of oxygen, as we might probably know, as we all know. And next, on the climate side, seasons will become pretty extreme as heat usually disperses around our planet via the oceans and their current is no more. Poles will be a lot colder while the equator will be a lot hotter. The rain that falls will be very unevenly distributed. Majority of habitable zones will exhibit monsoon climate, and the areas further from the equator would also suffer from a severe seasonality. Basically, seasons will be pretty much uh, messed up. The hot will be insanely hot, the cold will be very cold, and there will be probably not much of that golden zones where it's habitable and warm and suitable for farming in general. And not to mention the oceans, right? The oceans where usually the heat is disperses around our planet via the oceans and the current, and now there is none of them. Now the heat that will not disperse as effectively as before, since a lot of oceans will have is becoming lands, and so heat won't travel as good as before, and the planet will be probably a lot hotter and a lot more regionalized on in the term of heat. And now next, the conclusion would be Human life will become a lot harder to maintain. Many will die from lack of water, extreme climate conditions, and much more. And finally, let's hope this will never happen, because obviously, a lot of life will die because of the aforementioned lack of water and extreme climate conditions. The competition will be insane for life. And finally, the references I used are here listed. And the next is an appreciation. Okay. Thank you for listening. From Pandu here. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye bye.